On today's show, what Dylan Samberg's new 3-year contract means for the Winnipeg Jets. We'll get into some breakout candidates going into next NHL season. And if you live in 200 different countries, you'll now be able to watch the National Hockey League on demand.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome inside this Wednesday, July 30th edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me 5 days a week over at Locked On Ottawa Senators. And as always, it is the Battle of Ontario edition. I'm joined by Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Just hours before arbitration, restricted free agent Dylan Samberg has re-upped a new 3-year contract with the Winnipeg Jets. It will pay him an annual average of $5.75 million with 20 points last season. You might say, wow, that's pretty expensive. But Mikey, in terms of the modern day two-way defenseman, Dylan Samberg, talk about breakout candidates. He had a season of that last year.
Dylan Samberg's a great player. Like, honestly, like this kid's really broke out last year, as you noted. And, you know, he became a premier top 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League. And, you know, it took him a little bit. Like, he's a kid who went through the college route and then ended up in you know, Winnipeg and, you know, played through the minors, and they developed him, spent a long time kind of seasoning. And then eventually that, you know, he broke out last year. And it wasn't just, you know, the 20 points isn't necessarily what I look at when I look at Dylan Samberg. I look at, you know, the fact that this kid was like so reliable in his own end for the Winnipeg Jets. Like, you talk about a team that had one of the best records in hockey and a team that had the best goaltender in hockey a year ago. I mean, he played a big part in that. He's a big body boy, 6'4", it's like 220 pounds. Like, he was meant to be a top 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League with that type of body type. So Dylan Samberg, I'm glad that he turned the corner this year and kind of reached his potential, and he got rewarded for with a pretty good deal. 3 years. It's at 5.75 by 3. Yep. Pretty solid.
5.75.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the cap going up, that's more like a $5 million contract. I know there's going to be some sticker shock over the next couple of seasons with the cap going up the way it is. But like the Winnipeg Jets, yeah, they got lucky on the back end in terms of the health this year. But with that, they were able to stick with the same defensive pairings all year long. Yeah. Josh Morrissey was with Dylan DeMello for 1,225 minutes at even strength last year. And then it was Dylan Samberg with Neil Pionk. And it was like the perfect yin-yang. You could allow Neil Pionk to roam a little bit more offensively, be that riverboat gambler, knowing that Dylan Samberg, who's an elite skater, was able to get back and mop up any mistakes that may come. Now, Samberg was the lone Winnipeg Jets defenseman in that top 4 who missed some time. He missed 22 games last season, but being a plus 34 in 60 games, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. And I know they did have a great goal differential as a team, but this guy's a stud. So if you're looking at this deal saying, whoa, no, this is going to pay off huge dividends. And as a guy, myself, living in Winnipeg right now, a lot of the talk among Jets fans is, why wasn't this a longer-term deal? Why could these two sides not agree on a 6, 7, or 8-year contract that the Jets have been pretty comfortable handing out? They gave Neil Pionk a 7-year extension earlier this summer. They've been known for locking up their RFAs to long-term deals. Now, he's pretty settled in Winnipeg. His wife's a dentist, just started working at a practice here last season. He's from Minnesota. There's definitely a lot of collaboration, let's say, between the state of Minnesota and the Winnipeg Jets. Just look at their former captain, Blake Wheeler, Neil Pionk, among a many more list. Alex Iafallo on that too, just on the current team. So they've got a little bit of connection there, and I think this should be a long-term connection. Now, that said, Mikey, do you like or dislike this? In the 3 seasons from now, when Samberg's deal is up, They will also need a new contract for both Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello. So 3 of their top 4 defensemen are all expiring in the same summer. Is that good for flexibility, or has that a lot on their plate for one offseason?
I guess it's both. Like it can be good for flexibility, but also, 3 years from now, like what are all of those players? Like I think that's a good question that you could ask. Like Josh Morrissey's kind of getting up there in age. Like 3 years from now, is he still going to be
3.
that top? How old is he?
He will be 33 when it expires. DeMello will be 35. So what my thought process is that you're basically going to take some of the $4.9 million per season that Dylan DeMello will be expiring, and you'll be reallocating that to Dylan Samberg.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it for sure. And you're just going to kind of usher in the new young talent, the new young blood on that blue line. But I mean, that essentially tells you Winnipeg thinks they have pretty much a 3-year window, right? Like that, there's a big 3-year window here. And I don't know, like I think Winnipeg, both sides probably, or even the shorter term deal was probably more so like Samberg wanting that. Like we know how much the cap is going to grow over the next few seasons. So like if Winnipeg was unwilling to stretch over $6 million, like I guess, figuring out a bridge deal. I know it's unconventional in the modern day, but that's kind of how you do that, right? If they're not ready to give you the 8x8, because let's Dylan Samberg had a terrific season. Like but let's call a spade. Prior to this year, he was only playing 15 minutes a night, mainly third pair role. And then all of a sudden, now he's playing 21 minutes a night at age 26. It's like, okay, that step that he took this year, like, was that real or was it just like an anomaly season? Because as of now, it's an anomaly season, right?
Yep.
So that I think you have to also look at it that way. If you are the Winnipeg Jets, like we're not ready to sink our teeth into an 8x8, but we'll go 3 years. We'll give you that because we think that that's worthwhile. And then in 3 years, if you do live up to your potential, that's when we can sink our teeth into a long-term deal. The cap is going to be going up anyways, and that's when we can look at something in the 8s or 9s potentially at that point. So I actually think that it's a very fair deal on both sides. Like it's a bit of a bet by the Jets, but it's also Samberg saying, "Hey, I'm a top 4 defenseman now, and I want to be paid like it." So he is just shy of $6 million over the next 3 years with a chance to make more money. When that bill comes due a few years down the line.
Yeah, decent raise from the $1.4 million he had made on his previous 2-year contract that expired this past offseason. And talk about taking advantage of an opportunity, right? The Jets move on from Brendan Dillon last summer. He got a great contract from the New Jersey Devils, and you could say it was an upgrade internally having him play the extra minutes. So I think this is a great deal for the Jets, who are looking to continue keeping their window open. Since we last spoke as well, Gabriel Velarde signs a 7-year, 6 or 7-year extension long-term at $7.5 million. So I think there's a lot of good direction here in Winnipeg for a team where everybody's quick to make them the butt of a joke and, oh, nobody wants to go to the Jets. Well, the narrative seems to actually be that once players get to Winnipeg, they're pretty comfortable in re-signing. Gabe Velarde spent the first portion of his career in Los Angeles, has a California girl, and signed a long-term extension in Winnipeg. So I think it says that they're doing the right by their players. They're providing an environment around the team, around the organization that allows these players to thrive. And now it's about getting past the second round of the playoffs, which has eluded them over the last bunch of seasons since 2018 when they made it to the third round against the Vegas Golden Knights. But I like what they've got when it comes to their on-ice product. It was a quieter offseason for them, only bringing in Gustav Nyquist, who they're hoping for a bounce-back year. 2 years ago, he had a great season. 70 points? Last year, he was not good. They lose Nikolai Ehlers, but they're going to need more internally from Cole Perfetti, who you think could take another step in the right direction. And then they've got a couple of young kids that historically the Jets have been very patient in bringing their players into the NHL. But a couple names I'll throw at you. Nikita Chibrikov, I think, could be primed for a better season in terms of his NHL games. Brad Lambert's been a prospect now for a couple of years. And more recently, Braden Yeager, who I think they'll probably start with the Moose next year, but they got him in the Rucker McGroarty trade last offseason from Pittsburgh, former first-round pick. So I think up front, the Jets are looking for a little bit more, but defensively is always going to be their calling card as long as Connor Hellebuck's at the top of their games, or his game. So I really like the Jets to be the favorite again in a very tough Central Division where you've got Colorado and Dallas nipping at your heels night in, night out.
Yeah, I've never, you can never question what the Jets are going to do in the regular season. What are they going to do come playoffs? What's Connor Hellebuck going to do when he goes on the road in the playoffs? That's the only thing that it will always kind of, the one question I'll always have with this, they're the Leafs of the West. The Leafs of the West. It's insane.
They did have one of the best moments of the entire playoffs, though, last year. That Game 7 against St. Louis.
Yeah.
Down 2 with 3 minutes left? Tying it with 0.7 seconds left?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That did happen, yeah.
Then double OT at home?
Yeah.
Getting the win?
That was nice.
wild.
That was wild. That was nice.
Yeah.
And then got dummied in the second round.
Dummy. I mean, it's wild to say that because they had 2 shutout wins in the second round as well. Hellebuck just couldn't win on the road.
At home. Yeah, no.
Yeah, both at home.
Yeah, can never win on it. It's perplexing, his home road splits. It's insane.
Wild. So, yeah, that's what we're going to have to work on next season.
North of 5 in the last 3 years on the road. It's crazy.
Yeah. No spoilers, but Cole Perfetti could definitely be a breakout candidate for next season, and he was the man that scored that tying goal with the final second remaining in Game 7. They end up winning that and losing to Dallas in round 2. But who are some other breakout candidates? We got one from each division on the other side. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You need last-minute tickets for that big event you've been looking forward to? Well, we've all been there, and it should be easy to get last-minute tickets. Live music, sports, how about a baseball game? Should be about making memories, not dealing with the lack of ticket availability. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling to find the best deals, Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. You ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there's no surprises. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. Shout out to the everydayers making us your first listen. You can also go check out all the great shows we've got going on across the network. What's going on these days over at Locked On Leafs, Mikey?
We just wrapped up our top 25 Leafs the last 25 years. So we were doing 5 players per show over the course of the last 5 shows. And we just finished up our top 5 on today's show. So go check it out. Just taking a look back, at some of the fun memories of some of the Leafs of the past and Leafs of the future. Not so great memories. But we kind of took it upon ourselves to do a little quarter century list. Everyone loves a good listicle in the off season. So we did.
We're working on our organizational value rankings over at Locked On Senators. We're going to start that September 1st. It's just interview season right now. I've had 17 guests on throughout the month of July, including Brady Tkachuk, and today on Locked On Senators, Angus Crookshank. So any New Jersey Devils fans out there that want to get to know the newest Devil, go check out our interview with Angus Crookshank. I'm not going to go so far saying he's a breakout candidate this year, although we love Crooker, but we do have plenty of breakout candidates across the league. So Mikey's going to hit us with the Atlantic Division to start. We're going to go through each division with our number 1 breakout candidate. So all you fantasy nuts, listen up, because there could be some great value had here. I know I'm going off the board with one of mine, but I truly believe in this player. But we'll lead into that with the Atlantic Division. Who's it going to be as the number 1 breakout candidate?
Well, now I'm really, really intrigued by who the player is going to be on your end. Look, it's a player who I really liked in the draft process a couple of years ago, and he's had some really good numbers in the American League. And I think it's time that he kind of bursts onto the scene in the NHL and kind of breaks out for the Buffalo Sabres. I'm looking at Yuri Kulich. I think it's time we see Yuri Kulich kind of pop off for the Buffalo Sabres and kind of become a full-time NHLer and really help this club because they need a lot of help. But I think that Kulich is a player who, last year, 27 goals, 45 points in the American League. He ended up coming up and playing, some games in the NHL, 62 games in the AHL, just 15 goals, 24 points. But I think it's time for him to kind of take that step. He'll be, 20, turns 22 next year. So he's right about that age where it's time for those first-round picks to kind of establish themselves. It'll be his second full-ish season, mostly. I guess it'll be his first full season, but second, season really in the NHL. It's time for your Kulich to step up. I like him as an option here.
Yeah, he had a great playoff too with the Rochester Americans, 8 points in 8 games, +6. And I feel like he always scored against Ottawa. So I certainly noticed him last year there with those 15 goals. So I like that call there for the Atlantic Division. I know Habs fans are like, come on, you got to pick one of our guys. Like we already talked about Ivan Demidov last week on the show.
He's not a breakout to me because he's a rookie. I don't know. He that's not necessarily breakout for me. Could he be the most? Will he be more impactful than Kulich? I believe so, but I'll consider that a breakout. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's extremely fair. And I think when you're looking at the Habs, it's easy to get excited because they lead the league in practice highlight videos in the summer. Like I've seen their practice facility more than I've seen some NHL rinks on social media.
Yeah, maybe that Bolduc kid though, like they brought over in the Logan Mailloux trade. He had 19, 20 goals in St. Louis. Like, could he become a 30-goal guy in the right situation here in Montreal? Perhaps. So maybe a Zach Bolduc can be an honorable mention. If you Montreal people are curious, if I can come up with a player for
say something nice about Montreal. That's the show here between our Ottawa and Toronto hosts.
Zach Bolduc. Zach Bolduc has a chance to be a breakout candidate.
Nice. Quick one on our own teams. For Ottawa, I'll go with Jordan Spence. I think he's going to be a real nice fit in Ottawa, and it's at the age where Nick Jensen is probably going to take a bit lesser of a role on that right side. So there's opportunity here for Jordan Spence coming over from LA to be a breakout guy. Who you got for the Leafs?
It's difficult because they're a veteran team. So there's not a lot of youth expected to come in and take on a bigger role. And again, I don't consider Easton Cowan a breakout because he's never played in the NHL. So he'd just be a rookie.
Be a break-in.
Could we see an even bigger leap from a guy like Matthew Nyes? Perhaps. Does he go from being a 50, 60-point guy to an 80-point guy? Maybe. Maybe he takes that leap and breaks up from being a good player to a great player with star qualities. That could kind of be he's still relatively young and he could be part of that. Maybe Matthias Michelli kind of refines his game after the trade into Toronto. Could he reach 60 points with the Maple Leafs? I could see that being the case. So I'll go with one of those two players for the Leafs.
All right, I've made you guys wait for it. And I think maybe this would have been more shocking before the extension happened because people saw what the money was. And clearly the Canes expect this guy to be a breakout star. Jackson Blake had 17 goals and 17 assists last season. I think he doubles both of those. I think this guy's a 65-point player or better next season. And if you look at his deployment, he played a lot with Jarvis and Aho last year. So if he's in that same position here, a year older, I think Jackson Blake could be one of those guys where he had his rookie season. It went well. I think he could double his point output this upcoming year.
Wow. I mean, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. I did raise an eyebrow when I saw that number that they gave him, the contract. And I kind of dove into it a little bit. I'm like, it's not a bad bet. It's not a bad bet on someone who's got, pro hockey genes in him, obviously being the son of Jason Blake. And, they need a guy like that, I think, in Carolina. So I think that's 35 goals, though. That's a big bet for him.
I know. I
But I
know.
like it.
I
I
think
like
the only thing I'm nervous about more so is the internal competition because they've got Logan Stankoven on that right side as well. And it's like,
Yeah.
who's going to get the power play minutes? Who's going to get those extra looks? But I just think that the sky's the limit for Jackson Blake. And this could be a year, whether he gets a little bit of ice time, whether it's with Nikolai Ehlers, Andrei Svechnikov, Taylor Halleck. There's a lot of good wingers there in Carolina. I think Jackson Blake brings a little bit of everything to the table. So he's my pick here in the Metropolitan Division. On the other side, we'll get to our Western Conference breakout candidates. And the NHL announced an international TV deal that will get more eyeballs on the game. Those conversations are next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. The countdowns are starting soon for the return of NHL hockey. We are finishing up the month of July. We've got the World Junior Summer Showcase going on where people are having way too many opinions on a summer scrimmage, but that just means everybody's chomping at the bit for the NHL to return. Rookie tournaments around the league will start the weekend of September 13th, and then the real thing begins in early October. Mikey, we've got our breakout candidates from the Atlantic Division, Yuri Kulich, from the Metropolitan Division, Jackson Blake. Now let's head to the Central Division, where we've already spent some time talking about the Winnipeg Jets. But in that division, who's the breakout candidate you'd like to highlight?
So there's two, I guess.
Ooh.
But one may be cheating.
Okay.
We haven't seen Connor Bedard break out yet, have we?
In terms of points we have, like I would almost think a breakout for Connor Bedard would be a similar point output. He had 79 last year, but being a more responsible two-way player and maybe making some plays that can help his team win.
I don't know. Like I look at Connor Bedard and I think there's a lot to be desired. He had 67 points last year.
Oh, what? Why did I think 79? Who had 79?
I don't know. But he had 67 points. He played all 82 games. He had 61 points the year before in just 68 games. So they got a point per game basis. It was pretty well similar, if not, a little worse off for Connor Bedard. But he's yet to crack the 25 goal plateau through his first couple of years in the NHL. I think that there's an opportunity here for him to really make a big time leap and like truly break out into the superstar status that he was billed to be. Like again, it's a bit of a cheeky, cheeky one because it is Bedard, and yes, he did win a Calder, and he is one of the bright young up and coming talents in the NHL. But again, waiting on him to really dominate and take control in games. I think that this year could be the season he does that. This could be the year that he hits 40 goals, and that would be a breakout to me. If he goes from 22, 23 to 40, that's a very breakout season for me. He gets to that point per game pace up in the 80 to 90 point range. That would be considered a breakout for me. So I think Connor Bedard, year 3, year 2, the sophomore slump hit him hard. And a lot of people have kind of soured on him. And it's not that they're calling him a bust per se. He's still going to be a great player. But people are taking that generational talent kind of moniker away from him. And he may not get that back. He may not be Matthews. He may not be McDavid. But he's still going to be a hell of an NHL player. And I don't think he showed us quite what he could do yet. I think this year, going to year 3, I think he'll have an opportunity to kind of really explode onto the scene. I can see this guy being, having his first 40-goal season this year and truly have that breakout season.
Yeah, I like that pick actually a lot. And I don't know why I thought he had 79 points. That was just a
complete You said 79. I'm like, he had 79. I don't recall that. I had to go double check my numbers. I'm like, I had like 60 something. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the number 70, though, 70 PIMs for Connor Bedard is not something you want to see. I think a lot of that had to do with frustration in terms of the way the team has gone. But for me, in the Pacific Division, I'm taking another team that has been bad over the course of the last number of years. They got a new coach in Joel Quenneville. And look, I'm tempted to go with Lucas Dostal. I really believe in this guy to be a number 1 goalie that can win you hockey games. But I look up front and there's so many young players there that last year took a step in the right direction, but they need more from a lot of those guys. And I'm between like 3 of them really. And I'm trying to pick which one can get the most upgrade because all these guys scored 20 goals. Like I wish I could just give you a 3-fer, which would be Leo Carlsson, Cutter Gauthier, and Mason McTavish, who is still, by the way, unsigned RFA and could even be in the Pacific Division next season. I think he should. If I'm Anaheim, I'm betting on Mason McTavish to be a two-way grit 30-goal guy going forward. But
you want me to be your tiebreaker?
Yeah, please.
Because I of the 3 players you mentioned, I think there is one guy who's poised to really break out, and it's the one who went 1 pick after Connor Bedard.
Yeah, Leo Carlsson. He's a stud, man. They've been like so patient with him, right? Like the first year they did the whole load management thing, and it was one of those where it's like, okay, like you get it. He's 19 years old and playing a lot of minutes when he does play, averaged over 18 minutes a game. Then last year played 76, and the ice time comes down almost 2 minutes a game, and he still puts up 20 goals. So, yeah, I like that. He had 45 points last year. I think him getting 60 is very reasonable next year.
It keeps escalating in the positive direction, right? 29 points in 55 games, then he has 45 points in 76 games. Goal total goes from 12 to 20. Could we see the goal total go from 20 to 30? Could we see the point totals go from 45, to 60 to maybe 70 points? Like I think Joe Quenneville too is a big addition to this group. And say what you will about, the past there and whether or not he should be in the NHL coaching again. But he is, and he's a good coach. I think he'll get a lot out of this younger group here, similarly to the way he did with the Chicago Blackhawks back in the day. But Leo Carlsson, I think, will be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the coaching change. I really think that, he's going to love this kid. I've spoken with a couple of people who I know closely who follow this team and have followed, Leo Carlsson's career over the last couple of years, and they believe he's due for a big-time breakout season. So I'm a big hockey card guy, and I've been buying up some Leo Carlsson stuff over the course of the summer, expecting that breakout. So I'm totally with you. I think next year Leo's gonna show what he's got, and the reason why, it was a big shock when the Ducks took him over Fantilli as second overall in that draft, and Fantilli has had the better career so far. But I think Leo Carlsson will kind of put himself back into that equation by the end of this year.
Yeah, well said. And you could argue the Ducks had the breakout candidate on the back end of the season last year. Jackson Lacombe, the year he had was outrageous. 14 goals, 42 points. 42 points.
He was an absolute stud fantasy.
Oh, yeah, 123 blocks as well, 127 shots on goal. But look who's behind him on the left side, Olin Zellweger and Pavel Mintyukov. I think those two could break out offensively as well. The Ducks, to me, could be that team in the Pacific that goes up and says, hey, after the top 3, there's a wide open race for who's going to be number 4. And some would even say LA had such a bad offseason that they shouldn't even be included in those top 3. But look, them, Edmonton, and Vegas, they made the playoffs now for so many consecutive years. It's much like the Atlantic, where until Tampa, Florida, or Toronto doesn't make it, you're not going to bet against them. But beyond that, in the Pacific, wide open.
I'm going to give you a name. I need someone to trade for this kid because I think that there's just not enough space for him on that blue line in Anaheim. Someone needs to trade for Tristan Luneau and give him an opportunity in the NHL. I don't know if it'll be with Anaheim. Like I said, they're just so loaded defensively, but I love this kid. He had a great season in the American League, 52 points in 59 games, only played 6 games with the Ducks, but he was terrific in the queue. Like, he was the number 1 overall pick in the queue a few years ago. Got injured, but I had him when I did my remember when Overdrive were the special guest coaches for the CHL Top Prospects game?
Yeah.
Luneau was on my team, and he was the guy who stood out to me most in that game.
Sweet.
That was the year with like Shane Wright, Savard. There's a lot of really good players on that team, but Luneau stood out to me. And big year last season in the American League as a 20-year-old. I think at some point he's going to get an opportunity, a right shot defenseman, responsible both ways. Don't know if this year is going to be the breakout, but he's one to watch in the future. Whether it's with Anaheim or another team that trades for him, I think the kid's got a future in the show.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He was the first overall pick in the QMJHL draft as well, so he's got the pedigree. Those are breakout candidates, and a breakout could be the NHL. A deal with DAZN now will give 200 different countries access to NHL hockey on demand. So just a quick note on that we are excited to see the growth of the National Hockey League. This deal is not available in the US or Canada or the Nordic nations, as they already have their own TV deals. So nobody's going to be stepping on each other's toes. But if you're in a lesser popular area for the game of hockey, you'll still be able to dial in and watch games on demand, much like the NFL has with Game Pass. And we're starting to see it more and more with different leagues going to DAZN for their media distribution. So that's all exciting news here. We're going to be back next Wednesday. We'll have more great topics for you to get into. Let us know in the comments who your top breakout candidates are in the National Hockey League. For Mike DiStefano, I'm Ross Levitan. You can go find us on Locked On Senators, Locked On Maple Leafs. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.